It's curious how, in today's world, the word impossible lasts less and less time. In a scenario dominated by wars, speeches, and empty promises, something unexpected emerges. Germany declares that Donald Trump's plan for Gaza could become a reality as early as next week. Sounds improbable? Undoubtedly. But that's precisely where the power of historical turning points lies. They happen when skepticism is at its peak. While many leaders prefer cautious speeches, Trump is betting on action. And Germany, by echoing his confidence, sends a silent message to the world. Perhaps the global chessboard is about to change again. But what lies behind this sudden hope? Is it a genuine step towards peace, or just another chapter in the old political game disguised as altruism? You are about to discover what almost no one is saying, what is being negotiated in the shadows, what is being prepared between powers, and above all, what this news reveals about the future of world power. So before judging the absurdity of the statement, it is worth asking yourself, what if the improbable, this time, actually happens? Have you ever wondered why, amidst so much chaos in the world, an almost surreal statement suddenly emerges? Could the first phase of Donald Trump's plan for Gaza be implemented as early as next week? Well, get ready. What seems like a risky gamble turns out to be a bold diplomatic move that defies both common sense and the expectations of those following the conflict. Imagine for a moment that everything continues as it is, and suddenly there's a click, and the pieces start to move. For many, it might sound like fiction. For others, it's the possibility of real, almost instantaneous change, but no less controversial for that. Now, with Germany publicly declaring that this first step is achievable by next week, the uninitiated observer needs to ask, what has changed? And more importantly, what will be the impact if this movement succeeds or fails? And that's exactly why you're here now. To delve deeply into this story, understand the behind-the-scenes aspects, the risks and opportunities hidden within this declaration, and see how it can indeed affect not only the Middle East, but our world in a very immediate way. Germany's surprising announcement and the context of the statement. It was like a spark in a diplomatic powder keg. Germany, known for its prudence and measured language, surprised the world by stating that Donald Trump's plan for Gaza could, in fact, be implemented as early as next week. It wasn't just a phrase thrown to the wind. It was a signal, a calculated move, perhaps, or maybe an attempt to test the global political climate. The truth is that statements like this are never random. They prepare the ground, gauge reactions, and above all, create expectations. Upon hearing this, many people wondered, why now? After all, Germany doesn't usually make such predictions, especially when the topic is as volatile as Gaza. But that's where the game of modern diplomacy comes in, where what is said in public is only a small part of what is really being negotiated behind the scenes. And those who follow the behind the scenes of geopolitics know, when Berlin speaks, there's usually more going on than meets the eye. Perhaps the most curious aspect is the tone of the announcement. It wasn't a warning, nor a promise, but something in between, almost an invitation to speculation. And it is precisely in this kind of subtext that great changes usually arise. Because before a plan becomes reality, it first needs to become credible. And apparently that's what's being built right now, a narrative of possibility. But will this narrative be strong enough to withstand the test of reality that follows? What is Trump's plan for Gaza, and why does it divide opinions? The so-called Trump plan for Gaza is more than a political map. It's an attempt to rewrite the rules of coexistence in one of the most unstable regions on the planet. During his administration, Trump made it clear that he believed in pragmatic solutions, those that don't please everyone, but that move the gears of power. His proposal, according to sources close to him, would involve the creation of a security zone and an economic agreement that would attract investment from allied Arab countries. It seems bold, But this kind of boldness has always been the fuel of his strategy. But what delights some irritates others. Critics say the plan is superficial, built on the idea that money and quick deals can replace decades of hurt and mistrust. Supporters, on the other hand, argue that precisely because it is direct and objective, it has a real chance of breaking the impasse. And here's a lesson that applies to any sphere of life. Sometimes, what needs to be done is not what pleases, but what works. Diplomacy, after all, is a game where no one wins without taking risks. Ultimately, the plan isn't just about Gaza. It's about influence, prominence, and legacy. Trump knows that if something of this magnitude happens under his name, he returns to center stage on the world stage. And Germany knows this too. Perhaps that's why the declaration came from there. Because in the chess game of global politics, whoever recognizes a move first has a better chance of controlling the next one. The question is, who is really moving the pieces? Diplomatic backstage and the hidden role of Western powers. While the spotlight is on Germany's announcement and Trump's alleged plan, the real game is being played off-camera, in discreet conversations between foreign ministers, strategists, and security advisors. Modern diplomacy is no longer conducted at round tables filled with flashing lights, but in encrypted calls, silent coffee breaks, and carefully worded messages. Behind the scenes, the United States is seeking allies to provide political support for the plan, and Europe is carefully choosing its words to avoid appearing submissive or disinterested. Germany, for example, would not have made such a declaration without first gauging the sentiments of Washington and Brussels. It's the kind of move that indicates strategic alignment, a discrete synchronicity between powers that, although differing in discourse, share economic and security interests. Anyone who understands geopolitics knows that, in situations like this, no one speaks alone. Every phrase uttered by a leader is the echo of many other voices, hidden behind the curtain of diplomatic expediency. And that's precisely where the most intriguing point lies. While Western powers preach neutrality, they also pave the way for their interests to flourish in territories in crisis. Gaza is, therefore, more than just a territory. It's a mirror of the West's ambitions. And when that mirror reflects more than expected, the world begins to see what was previously hidden. The question is, to what extent will this reflection be tolerated before someone decides to break the mirror? The Middle East's reaction and the risks of hasty implementation. In the Middle East, every move is watched with the scrutiny of those who have already paid dearly for believing in Western promises. Germany's declaration was received with distrust in several Arab capitals. Some see it as an attempt to revive U.S. influence in the region. Others see an opportunity to reposition their own interests. Israel observes in calculated silence, while Egypt and Jordan do what they have always done: wait to see which way the wind is really blowing before committing themselves. The rush to implement any plan there is always a risk, and Trump knows this better than anyone. Gaza is an emotional territory before it is geographical. Every stone carries memories, and every street, a symbol. Trying to rebuild a quick peace is like erecting a building on quicksand. It seems firm for a while, until the first tremor reveals it. Even so, the world seems willing to believe that this time, pragmatism can overcome historical pain. But those who have lived through the conflict know. Nothing there is as simple as it seems. And perhaps that's why Germany used the word could instead of will. It's a verb that carries hope, but also caution. It's the diplomatic way of saying, we are ready if the impossible happens. And it is on this thread of hope that nations balance between the desire for stability and the fear of a new collapse. The big question is, what is really behind this rush to solve something that time alone has never been able to heal? What does this reveal about Trump's power and strategic style? To understand this movement, it's necessary to comprehend Donald Trump's unique style. A man who treats politics like a business chessboard and negotiations like games of influence. He operates in a field where perception is as important as results, and where the silence behind the scenes is as strategic as the noise in the headlines. His strength lies not only in the decisions he makes, but in how he makes the world react to each one. The plan for Gaza is just another example of how he masters the art of transforming expectation into power. While many leaders wait for the right moment to act, Trump creates the moment. He understands that in global politics, timing is everything, and that often, those who anticipate don't need to win, only to direct the flow. It's the kind of mentality that separates those who play the game from those who write the rules. That's why, even outside the White House, his name continues to orbit at the center of international decisions, like an echo that insists on making itself heard. And that's precisely the most provocative point. Perhaps the plan for Gaza isn't just about foreign policy, but about narrative. Germany may have lit the fuse, but the match was lit long before, by a man who understands that real power lies not in controlling territories, but in controlling the narrative. And when the whole world discusses his plan, even before it's officially in action, it's a sign that the strategy worked. The question is, what will be the next act in this story? The global consequences and political impact of the plan. If Trump's plan for Gaza actually comes to fruition, the impact will not be limited to the Middle East. The truth is that every decision of this nature reverberates like a wave across oceans, affecting economies, alliances, and the very perception of world power. A change in Gaza means a reconfiguration in Washington, a reaction in Moscow, and a silent calculation in Beijing. The whole world watches, not only out of geopolitical interest, but because it knows that when the United States moves, the global chessboard rearranges itself. Europe, for its part, walks a tightrope between prudence and dependence. Germany, by adopting this optimistic discourse, may be trying to reaffirm its relevance in an arena dominated by larger powers. Meanwhile, Arab countries oscillate between the fear of new conflicts and the hope that an agreement, however imperfect, will bring some economic relief. No one wants to be the first to commit, but no one wants to be left out of the new political landscape that may emerge. It's the old dilemma of diplomacy. Those who hesitate lose influence. And in the end, the greatest impact may not be visible on maps, but in mindsets. If Trump's plan comes to fruition, it redefines the concept of leadership in the 21st century, less about institutional authority and more about narrative control. Power will be measured not by who governs, but by who dictates the pace of the global conversation. And in this respect, few master this art as well as he does. But the world has not yet realized how much this change has already begun to happen, and perhaps that is the real plan in action. The role of media and the manipulation of narratives surrounding the plan. The media has never been merely an observer. It is a powerful player on this chessboard. Since Germany's announcement gained the spotlight, newspapers and news channels have begun to shape versions of what would be Trump's plan for Gaza. Each headline carries an intention. Some exalt a possible peace. Others denounce a power game. The public, in turn, rarely realizes that what it is reading is not reality, but a carefully directed interpretation. It's like watching a play where each actor represents a convenient truth. Trump, who has always understood the power of narrative, uses it masterfully to his advantage. He knows that, in a world dominated by algorithms and timelines, controlling attention is more important than controlling territories. When the media talks about him, even critically, he wins. Because, while they discuss his intentions, the focus remains on his name, and the name is the brand. And in times of information warfare, whoever has the most mentioned brand dictates the pace of history. The most curious thing is that Germany, with its restrained and diplomatic style, ended up fueling precisely this mechanism. A simple phrase became a global headline, reigniting the debate about the role of the United States and reviving Trump's image as a global strategist. It's the old art of transforming words into power, a skill few master, but one that moves mountains when used with precision. And perhaps that's what's at stake now. Not just a political plan, but a silent war over who controls the narrative of truth. The silence of the powers and the noise of the streets. The popular reaction. While leaders carefully choose their words and calculate risks, the streets speak louder. In Tel Aviv, Berlin, London, and even Washington, demonstrations have begun to echo with signs that mix hope and revolt. For some, Trump's plan represents a chance for reconstruction. For others, it is just another imperialist maneuver disguised as diplomacy. Public opinion has become the new battleground, and every post, every protest, every hashtag is a piece that puts pressure on governments and changes the course of negotiations. History shows that major decisions are rarely born in closed rooms. They are driven by the clamor of the masses. This was the case with the Arab Spring and with the fall of the Berlin Wall. And now, perhaps, we are witnessing the beginning of a new era of popular influence in international relations. The curious thing is that, amidst so many voices, no one seems to truly listen. Because the noise of the streets, however powerful, is easily manipulated by those who control the digital narrative. And that is where the true power game becomes almost invisible. The contrast is striking. While chancellors speak of prudence, the people speak of haste. While diplomats ask for time, protesters demand change. This distance between official discourse and popular sentiment is the kind of tension that precedes great transformations. And whoever understands this pulse first, whoever knows how to listen to what the streets are trying to say, will hold not only the key to the present, but also the map of the future. And it is precisely this map that the world is slowly beginning to draw. The geopolitics of hope. When interests disguise themselves as good intentions. On the international political stage, promises of peace are always wrapped in speeches of hope. But those who observe closely realize that behind every word humanitarian lies an equation of interests. Trump's plan, seen by some as a chance for a fresh start for Gaza, also represents an opportunity for global repositioning. Each country that supports the project does so not only out of compassion, but also strategically, because hope, in the right hands, is a powerful currency. History is full of examples of this. When the United States rebuilt Europe after World War II with the Marshall Plan, the world applauded. But few remember that this also consolidated American influence over the continent for decades. The same pattern is repeating itself now, on a different scale. Rebuilding Gaza may mean rebuilding the image of the U.S. in the Middle East. And Germany, by publicly validating this view, may be betting that the future of global stability inevitably depends on Western approval. And this is where hope shows its most paradoxical face. It unites, but it also manipulates. It inspires people to dream, but serves as a smokescreen for coldly calculated geopolitical moves. Yet, it is hope that moves the world. Because even when used as an instrument of power, it is also the spark that keeps alive the belief that something can change. And perhaps, in the end, it is precisely this mixture of faith and strategy that makes Trump's plan so irresistibly complex. The uncertain future and the illusion of global control. Ultimately, the greatest paradox of geopolitics is the human desire to control the uncontrollable. Powers plan, calculate, sign agreements, and create complex strategies, but a single unexpected gesture, an isolated spark, is enough to shift the entire playing field. It's like trying to tame the wind. You can build walls, but you can't stop it from changing direction. Trump's plan for Gaza, with all its ambition and promises, is just another reminder that the world doesn't fully bend to the will of any man, no matter how powerful he may seem. And yet, there is something profoundly human in this insistence on trying. Germany speaks of possibility, Trump speaks of action, and the world speaks of hope, all believing that somehow they can shape tomorrow. But tomorrow, as history insists on showing, has a life of its own. It rewards audacity, but punishes overconfidence. And that is why even the grandest plans need a balance between courage and humility. Perhaps the great lesson behind all this is that power, when observed closely, is more fragile than it seems. True strength lies not in predicting the future, but in knowing how to react to it. And while leaders and nations try to write their versions of history, time silently writes its own. And it is in that interval, between what is desired and what actually happens, that the fate of the world is decided. Ultimately, what this episode reveals goes far beyond Gaza, Germany, or Trump. It shows that the world continues to be shaped by narratives, by those who have the courage to say what others only think, and by those who know how to transform disbelief into action. History, after all, has never been written by those who wait, but by those who dare to move the pieces when everyone believes the game is over. But what about you? Which side of history are you choosing to be on? The one that merely observes the events, or the one that truly tries to understand them? Perhaps this is the moment to question what seems obvious, to see beyond the headlines, and realize that power, ultimately, begins with how we interpret the world. Because whoever understands the present governs the future, and that is the true lesson behind all of this. If this content made you think, leave a like, share it with someone who needs to hear this analysis, and of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we don't just comment on what happens, we reveal what no one else is seeing.